Awesome. Good evening and good afternoon. I'm Christian Reed Arbor from Equity Public Relations, and welcome to the third and the final Protect Your Village Facts versus Fears virtual town hall. Brought to you by University Health. We're going to give some folks a couple minutes, just two or three, to get on in the room and join us from either Our Culture Matters, or they're joining us from the event page or on Echo Public Relations, or if you're coming in hollering at us from SA Black, welcome. All right, give us a couple more minutes. And of course, this is when I recognize that I left my phone super close to the camera. There we go. All right. It is a wonderful day to have a community conversation surrounding the COVID-19 vaccine. Give folks a couple of more seconds to jump into the room. And we're going to kick this thing off with all of our amazing panelists. Again, this is the third and the final virtual town hall. Our Protect Your Village Facts versus Fears virtual town halls have been brought to you by University Health in an effort to gear up our community, our Black community, into getting and understanding the pros and the cons of the COVID-19 vaccine. We're a year and a little bit into this pandemic, so it's very important that we have open, honest conversations around real information. So we're fighting this misinformation surrounding the COVID-19 vaccine, and right here on the platform where people usually get the bad news. So we're hopefully can use this. We ask that you take a moment right quick, share this video with your friends, your fans, your followers, so that we can keep our entire community well informed around how we're going to protect our villages and stay safe as we wrap up, hopefully, the pandemic. Maybe, hopefully, we don't know. So before we get started, Camilla Factory is joining us, and she's got a very necessary message for us. So Camilla, I'm going to hand over the platform to you. Thank you.
Yes. As everybody knows, I hope by now, Dante Wright was a 20-year-old Black man who was shot and killed by a police officer in Minneapolis by the Brooklyn Police Department. And there have been a massive protests and calls to action for the injustice in which he was murdered. So I think in a conversation like this, it's fitting to have a moment of silence to remember why we come together as a Black community to stand in solidarity for the hardships that we face. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Camilla. It has been a year. We have a lot going on, and this will be a very honest and safe conversation for us all to air what we know and what we need to know around the COVID-19 vaccine as we attempt to save our lives on this facet of what's in front of us. So I am so grateful and so excited to be here with you all today. I'm the founder of Equity Public Relations. My name is Christian Reed Agba. Before we introduce our guests, I wanted to share just a little bit of the perspectives that we took into creating this virtual town hall series and the background information and the context that we got from University Health surrounding the COVID-19 vaccinations and how they were being distributed to San Antonians. I believe efforts to promote the vaccine must be direct, and they must confront and address the deep historical traumas that have created high levels of vaccine hesitancy. And the government and the healthcare industry overall have created some fail safes for us to make sure that we are getting the care that we deserve. I believe that transparency, and Echo Public Relations believes that transparency is the key to building trust within our community. And when we took that information and took those viewpoints to University Health, they agreed with us and they helped us to create opportunities that will hopefully increase willingness to receive the COVID-19 vaccine in our community. So we are very grateful and very thankful for University Health for trusting us with this message giving. The negative connotation between Black identity and vaccines intention has to be directly addressed. And so today we are going to be joined by Camilla Factory of Black Freedom Factory, as well as other leaders in our community to discuss what it means to have vaccine hesitancy and what it means to bypass that. You all, we have an amazing moderator today. I've met her on a couple of occasions, but most recently, you've probably seen her in the San Antonio Express News. She's a trailblazer. She's a businesswoman and a mentor. I'm pretty sure of it. And we can talk about mentorship. We have to talk about being able to learn from afar. And what she's taught me is that if it takes someone to know someone, I am glad I know Miss Francine Prosser Johnson. She has the, she's literally the key. She's the plug. She's the glue right now. She's 1/3 of a team. I hope I got 3. 1/3 of a team that have worked feverishly with absolute intent to help our community get the vaccine. Francine, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us as our moderator today. And thank you so much for all that you've done for the community and all of that you have in plans for our community. I can't wait to follow your lead on this conversation. So Francine, I am going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I count it all a joy. This journey has been a journey for all of us, not only in the San Antonio community, in this great state of Texas, and in this United States of America with what we have been experiencing over the last several months. So I am very grateful that you have provided, that there is a provision for this type of platform for us to come together as a community and have these type of discussions. So thank you for that. At this time, I'd like to welcome and thank all of our panelists for joining us this evening. I'd like to start with Dr. Tommy Austin, who is the Senior Vice President and Chief Nurse Executive for University Health Systems. Welcome, Dr. Austin.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to welcome Margaret Analia, who is the owner of Al's Gourmet Nuts. Thank you for joining us this evening. And Miss Kimmy Factory, who is the president of the Black Freedom Factory, and our very own County Commissioner, Tommy Calvert. So thank you all for being here, Commissioner for District 2. As Black Americans, we have been twice as likely as white people to die from COVID-19, and also less likely to be vaccinated. So getting everyone vaccinated against the coronavirus is a crucial step in the turnaround for us going back to what we would consider normal for each and every one of us. But a lot of hurdles and a lot of questions are still remaining around what will happen. So I would like to ask each of our guests this evening to just take a few minutes to offer their perspective on COVID-19 and how it has affected the community. So I'd like to start that conversation off by talking to Dr. Tommy Austin.
Well, as a professional nurse who works in a hospital where I saw patients lying prone with COVID-19, needless to say, it made a lasting impression on me. And one where my first thought was to make sure that one, I protected my staff, and secondly, I protected my family. And so the things that university did, which I'm so proud of, they had a COVID response team, and I was part of that COVID response team, and we made sure that we had the personal protection equipment and other things needed to take care of our staff. And we also initiated a reprocessing of our N95 masks so that we would not run out. And I think those things gave our staff the feeling of a sense of safety that enabled them to be able to take care of patients. And then on the second, in educating my family members and friends, educating them on what were the risk factors, the necessity of following the CDC guidelines, wearing the mask, social distancing, hand sanitizing, what were the importance of those? And when I broke it down to them, they all understood. And I have come from a very large family. My mom had, there were 9 of them, and on my dad, there were 6. And of the both families, only 2 of the family members in that family have gotten COVID-19. And so I credit that to them listening to the warning and reading and heeding the information from the CDC. But what I'll say about COVID-19 is that it scares me. And when they said that there was a vaccine available, I was one of the first in line. So I just want to make sure that people understand the disease is a lot worse than the vaccine. And so the vaccine, you can survive the vaccine, but I have seen loved ones, coworkers concede to the virus. And so it's important that we get the word out about how serious this really is.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your perspective on that. Ms. Analia, can you share with us?
Yes, and thank you for actually allowing me to be here today. I coming from the perspective of both personal and professional. On the professional side, with Al's Gourmet Nuts, if you can imagine, you know, we were brilliant in having 3 different marketing strategies, from corporate work, fundraising, and convention work. March last year, that all fell apart. Our income went from X amount to 0 within a 24-hour period. So we had to make an assessment as a business as to what direction we were going to go in, as well as how would we protect ourselves. My personal philosophy is God, family, and business in that order. So I took to this COVID-19, as we say, I didn't cause this, I can't control it, I can't change it, but what can we do as a business, and how do I protect my family? How do I protect my staff? So what we did is we literally hit the pause button for about 90 days. And part of that is, you know, thank God we were able to do that financially, but we wanted to make sure that we were all safe because we didn't know what it was. I have an 80-year mother who just turned 80 years old, and I have a very smart senior group of people that I've hired as my staff people. So I had all seniors, so they were very scared. So with that in mind, once we hit the pause button, we were able to see what we were able to do. One of our main sources of income is the Pearl Farmers Market. Well, if you can imagine, that's going out in public. So before we even chose to return, and by the way, the Pearl was very gracious in waiving fees and so forth for a couple of months for all of us. So we were very pleased with that, but we also wanted to know how we were going to be protected. So, you know, as you said, Tommy, we were looking at masks, you know, what kind of mask we were going to wear. Did I need to wear 5 masks? If you could try to imagine wearing 5 masks in the dead of summer in San Antonio, it's a little crazy. Hand sanitizer, everything at its max. So we took advantage of the opportunities from Bexar County, also from the city and other agencies with PPE supplies. And basically, we took advantage of the tools and put those tools in our tool belt to protect our staff and ourselves. And what we needed to do is we needed to, you know, continue to make revenue. How are we going to create revenue? Well, what we did is we leveraged all of the resources that were available to businesses from the local level, state level, and the federal level. So from that perspective, it was a matter of educating ourselves to keep our business afloat, but more important, how do we protect our team also? The second leg of that is family. I had my mother, and I'll be quite honest with you all, initially I said, no, I'm not going to take the vaccine. I'm going to let the first, you know, 1 million or 2, and let's see what happens to them. But as I researched and I listened to my medical friends and associates, we were dying. When I say we, Black and brown people were dying at a much higher rate. That scared me more than anything. So I decided we're going to give ourselves a chance to live versus die. And I won't call this person out, but they're sitting on this panel. They reminded me I was more concerned about getting my elderly mother and other people of that age category vaccinated, not worrying about myself. Well, I have a pre-existing condition. I have hypertension. I didn't read what it said about who's eligible. So I took to making sure, educating as many people as I could to say, get the vaccine. My mother should have been vaccinated in January, but she told me flat out no. Now, if you can imagine, 80-year, I'm old school, guys. So I'm respectful of my elders. My mother and I had a long talk. And I told her, do you want to die? You know, and it came down to that. So I'm happy to say that everyone in my family is vaccinated, except for my 2 teenagers, and I'm getting those taken care of. I have a father also that's in his late 70s, and other elderly members. They're all vaccinated and they're all out of town. So I have become that preacher, teacher to say, look, we are dying. This is your choice, death or not. And if you have people of other ethnic groups coming in our community to get a shot, what does that say? Because we're giving it up. They're coming in. So we need to educate ourselves. Yes, there are a lot of things unfair in this world that we have to subject ourselves to, but we have incredible people in our community like Francine and others and Dr. Burns who are just, you know, it's been embraced with love, respect, professionalism, where we believe and we understand. We're still afraid. And I want to tell people it's okay to be afraid, but you also protect yourself. So I leave to say is we protected ourselves from a perspective of business and also on a personal level as well to keep ourselves afloat.
Thank you so much for your candor, for your directness about that. I think many of us may say we're old school, and when our parents, what they say, you know, then here we are giving the give and take. I know, I see Tommy shaking his head. I know very well. And
you know, so I got real tough parents, both of them. Can't play. Yeah.
So when they say one thing and we're trying to give advice and direction, you know, but I will consider you a little COVID angel because, you know, you've been getting lots of seniors to get their shot, and that's been amazing. So thank you. Thank you for that. Ms. Factory, would you like to share and weigh in on that?
Yes. I suppose I'm very familiar with the title of this conversation, and that's debunking myths and facts about hesitancies that the Black community have as it pertains to COVID-19 and the history of vaccination in the United States. And I think in my line of work and in my area of work, it's right to validate the fears and concerns that Black folk have about vaccinations, because you have figures in history like Henrietta Lacks, who created the HeLa cell, whose cells were taken without her consent, and the Tuskegee syphilis experiments, right? These are instances in which the Black community had to suffer because there was a bridge and a distrust and a spread of malinformation about what was being injected to our bodies. And considering the history of Blackness in the United States dating back to the transatlantic slave trade, it's important to remember that we have to educate our communities. We have to make sure that we understand the importance of our futures. And what that looks like is conversations like this in real time from professionals that are Black, that are in this field, and that want to protect our communities. It's important for Black people to hear other Black people say, I got vaccinated, and let's have that conversation about why you might have distrust. And so that's what really comes to mind for me in an activist space, in an advocacy space about Black communities and our distrust, rightfully so, and our experience with healthcare in the United States.
Thank you, Ms. Factory. Those are some very valid points of reference that we know are, it's like the elephant in the room. And so for us to put it out there and share it is critical. Commissioner Calvert?
Your question, thank you, Francie, for moderating, and the conversation's been absolute fire. I've loved everybody who's contributed. You know, when you asked your question, it gave me an opportunity to really reflect on the beginnings of all this and what the community has been through. And I think that this was a biblical chapter. Thank God it is ending where good is triumphing over evil. We remember, to what Kimya just said, we remember the fact that we had a racist president. And because he was a racist, people were afraid that there was another polio blanket situation, like what happened with the Native Americans, or another syphilis Tuskegee experiment. And that led to the foundations for this. And then just locally, if we think about the fact that Mrs. Ali, Wallace Ali's wife, was the first person to die, a Black person, a prominent Black family that a lot of us knew, it felt like they were coming after us. And in so many ways, they were. We still have a lot of racism in the way in which the distribution of the emergency response has gone forward. We look at the first outbreak in the nursing homes here at Southeast Nursing Home, and how some of the state and local figures tried to cover that up and try to say nothing really happened, only months later to come back and verify things that I had reported. We, as a Black community, knew about the low amount of care at River City Nursing Home, to be perfectly honest. And again, the powers that be said that everything was okay. And then later we learned that there were patients inside with no air conditioning, having to have ice put on their bodies in 104-degree heat in July. This community has been through a lot of trauma. We still don't have permanent facilities in our Northeast and Southeast. We have some gaps, obviously, that are still there. Thank God we've just recently gotten the St. Philip's College facility. Thank God for the work that you've been doing, Francine, and so many others. But this has been a year where we have seen gaps in our emergency response. And thank God the community and the people of God have risen up to try and fill those gaps. But there still are a lot of common sense things that we need to do in order to make sure that we protect human life. But I think that in this darkness, in this biblical chapter, we have seen Pharaoh go down once again, and we are headed towards healing and compassion. And we need our leadership. Thank God for Vice President Kamala Harris demonstrating the vaccine. I've had the vaccine. I know a number of other African-American elected officials have taken the vaccine. I haven't grown a third eye. I'm just fine. I'm doing fantastic. And I hope everyone else will realize that that we're needing to do this, because it will protect your life and your family.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Calvert, and thank you for the role that you have played from a political perspective. We know that some people have danced all around this, and some have been silent, but clearly that has not been your role and your position through this process. So we so very much appreciate that, very much. Thank you. I'd like to move to asking a question as it relates to your individual feelings about after taking the vaccine. What your feelings were before and after actually having the vaccine. Dr. Austin, you're on mute.
I would say that my feelings before taking the vaccine, I was very hesitant. And not hesitant in taking the vaccine, but hesitant in life and fearful. And I would say that after taking the vaccine, it did give me some comfort in knowing that I had done something to protect myself from a disease, because there are still a lot of people that I see here in Bexar County and I live near the Bernie area, and they don't wear a mask. And so because of that, taking the vaccine gives me some comfort in knowing that I'm protected, but I can also protect my 99-year-old cousin when I go and visit her. So I'm very, very excited and happy about the vaccine, and I want to share that happiness with the rest of any people, especially African Americans, because I want us to survive this. And I don't want anyone to die unnecessarily when there is something that can protect us.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you. Ms. Analia, your feelings before and after, I think you shared a little bit about that, but can you expound?
Say my feelings before, just like Dr. Austin, it was really, the anxiety was more not about the shot. It was about getting the shot, getting a slot to get the shot. And it was also feeling, I'd heard a lot of, should we say, negative stories. It's kind of like when you ask somebody, you tell somebody you're pregnant, and they tell you 1,000 different stories that were negative, but nothing positive. So it was anxiety before the shot. But what I chose to do also is to educate myself again as to what I needed to do. And Dr. Austin, just like you said, I felt a great deal of comfort after the shot. And it was after not just the first shot, but the second shot, and knowing that people are still out here not willing to, desiring to protect themselves. And I think my 19-year-old said it the best. He goes, "Mommy, it's the survival of the fittest, for those who want to survive and protect themselves." So for us, I look at it as survival mode. And as Harriet Tubman said, I will try to save as many as I can who want to be saved. If you don't want to be saved, I'm good. You just need to step on to the side and not inhibit the other people who want to be taken care of. So my philosophy of that is I'm on a comfort level now. And again, I'm like Harriet, I'm going to go back. I'm going to keep getting as many as I can to come in and get the shot. But I'm not going to allow those others to deter me. And we're still requiring our staff to wear a mask. And we wear a mask when we go out. So we are protecting of ourselves. So it's about taking away that anxiety, putting in that comfort, but still knowing that you have to continue to protect yourself.
Margaret, you know you need that Harriet pistol too.
You know I got that, Tommy. You know that concealed weapon thing. You know, come on.
Oh, you got the Medea purse? You got the Medea purse. Okay, gotcha.
I got a lot of other things, but I can't be telling all my secrets now. You know, then everybody don't know all my business, what I'm doing.
You gotta protect the cash register. I hear you. Okay.
Hello. You know how that is. What did Aretha say? Pay me in cash and pay me before I even get started with my comfort. And she kept her bag right next to her the whole time and took her money out too. So I got you. I'm about Aretha, Harriet, and all protecting.
Let's all of those strong Black women. That is correct. So, and I guess I would say, Ms. Anaya, out of the mouths of babes, your 19-year-old, you know, put it in perspective. That is so. That's good. That's good. Ms. Factory, can you share your feelings before and after?
Yes. I think before I was concerned about, because I got the Pfizer, I got the first dose, I get my second dose in 2 weeks. And I got anxious because I know my dad, he got, I don't know, I'm not sure if it was Moderna or Johnson & Johnson, but he got a dose and he was out for 3 days. Like he called me and he was like, I called him and he missed my call. And he was like, I was out. I'm sorry. I got my vaccine. So I was worried about being tired because I know that, you know, the vaccine can have different effects on different folk. But fortunately, I was just a little sore in my arm and I felt better about just the conversation around, I mean, this has been a very traumatic, exhausting experience, I think, for everybody with COVID-19 coming out of the woodworks and really shocking the world with how fast it spread and how much it really killed vulnerable populations. And so I was really worried about what I was hearing, right? And that's the point of this panel, is to diminish what we hear in the grapevine and validate like what we know to be true from our personal experience. My personal experience is I'm still here. I'm happy I got it. And I like having conversations with my peers about why they might fear getting it or what my experience was like, which luckily was a sore arm. I don't have a fever or other effects that other people might have, but I'm speaking from my first dose. So I still have a whole second dose to go. Fingers crossed it'll all go well, but I'm happy that before the summer, And before I feel like the nitty gritty of this conversation begins to happen, because, you know, these are the trials, well, not necessarily the trials happen, but these are the effects of the population interacting after having to wear masks for several months. And now socially, our settings have changed and acclimated to this new era of sanitizing our hands and making sure that we're more aware of how close we are in distance to people, right? This is a shift in social interaction that we haven't necessarily seen, in my opinion, in decades. So I'm excited. I'm excited about the future of this conversation. After I got the vaccine, like I said, I just felt a sore arm. But before then, you know, what you hear through the grapevine is it can be scary. And so it's important to hash that out and talk to our community about what we're feeling.
And thank you, Ms. Factory. And let me piggyback on what Dr. Austin said. You know, a sore arm, a headache, a little fever, you know, that doesn't have anything as unsurmountable as death, you know, and the things that can happen as a result of COVID-19. We still don't know about the long haulers and all of those kinds of things. We don't know. So I'm happy you've gotten your first, and I'm sure you will be just as beautiful and everything will go well with your second dose. So we're excited for you and about what that looks like, especially for our young people, and that you can be an ambassador to share information and to be open and honest with that age group that will have some hesitancies or some issues, and that you can be direct with them for that. So thank you. Mr. Calvert, Commissioner Calvert, your feelings?
Well, I had that conversation I think a lot of people had, which was I ain't taking that thing first, you know, and so, I mean, I definitely had that conversation with my friends and family. I didn't publicize it, obviously, but I'm just keeping it real. I had that kind of concern. And as I led up to my decision to go ahead and get it, I was in consultation with my doctor quite a bit with my research, my questions, because I have several conditions that, you know, that are potentially complicating if I take the vaccine. One of my big concerns was my low white blood cell count, but I worked through that with my doctor and I'm fine. I didn't have hard, you know, some folks do get, you know, some tough things that they deal with. I didn't have any of those, just the regular old pain in the arm. So I just want to let you know, if you know, are in my circumstance and, you know, you have a low white blood cell count, things of that nature, you know, I've come out just great. So after obviously a lot better. I mean, I used to be someone who was, you know, on the road almost every month before. And of course, I didn't want to do any travel, didn't care about doing any travel. I was just fine being at home knitting on Friday night. Didn't matter to me. And now I, you know, feel a lot more comfortable traveling, going out, being around folks. And it is a level of protection. Still wear my mask, but you definitely feel a lot better once you do it.
Good. Well, Commissioner Calvert, since we're speaking with you, I have a question that continues to pop up, and that is about the drug companies, and that the drug companies are trying to get rich off of us in the vaccine. So can you give us some insight on that?
Well, of course, the drug companies are going to make their money. They always do. There are laws that are created in research and development from, you know, the federal government that help move things along. The president activated the Defense Production Act. Thank goodness we finally had a president who would use it. Thank you, Lord, for Biden. And so, you know, there's some buying power that comes with negotiating prices from the federal government, but whatever prices the government has negotiated, it is a national emergency. And I'm grateful that they use their leverage to get this done and make sure that it's free for us. So the bottom line is it's free for us. So take advantage of it, because this doesn't happen every day.
Okay, Thank you. Dr. Austin, I have a question for you. Were Black and Brown people part of the research process, or was it white only as it relates to the vaccine?
No, they used diverse groups to test the vaccine. And so there were African Americans, there were Hispanic, Asian, different ethnic groups that participated in the actual trials of the vaccines.
Okay, thank you. When we talk about cost and about the drug companies and the money, I think, Commissioner Calvert, you hit upon that the vaccine is free. How long will it be free?
I suppose until the, until we get every American vaccinated. That's part of the Defense Production Act, is to get enough doses. I don't foresee any change in that. And I am fairly confident that if there is a SARS-3, that there will be immediate action from the federal government to ensure that cost is no burden, because the cost of having it spread in our community is far worse than the cost of the vaccine for the federal government. So thank goodness Biden's in. I can't say it enough, because I believe that, there will be a SARS-3. There will be these coming again. Dr. Austin and I were talking about how excited I am, having worked 6 years to get that new hospital in Selma, that if we do have another outbreak, our system is preparing to be better prepared, more capacity. And I'm quite confident that the lessons learned you think about countries like Taiwan, for example, that are next to China. We always kind of as Americans, I'm not speaking out of turn, we kind of looked at them weird when they wore masks up until now, right? Now, we gladly would put on that mask in a heartbeat, or most of us, and protect ourselves. We've learned how to protect ourselves. We know that these things are going to happen. So yeah, anyway, there it is.
Okay. All right. And Ms. Factory, a question for you. Because it is free, do you think that there should be a heightened level of suspicion?
I don't know. I don't know if free might further marginalize communities and identify them as more low income than they are already seen as, despite their statistic and their experience individually. So I might be a bit hesitant at the term free. I think accessible is a conversation that we need to have, considering people's access to transportation, access to labor, their jobs, access to information, panels like this, Wi-Fi, right? We have to talk about how communities are further marginalized. I would hope that accessible means free, right? That we understand that someone's accessibility to the vaccine might equal their opportunity, right? When we equate free, we should equate someone's right opposed to someone's income. And I think that's where the important conversation about vaccination should happen, and healthcare in this country. Quite frankly, if we're going to talk about solution-driven models, we got to talk about healthcare considering the disparities of Black communities in the United States. So I would hope so. To answer your question in short, I would hope that free means access and it means opportunity for communities that are vulnerable and marginalized.
Madam Moderator, let me just add a cherry on top of what Ms. Factory just said. None of this is actually free. You have paid for it as a taxpayer. So the truth of the matter is, it's just returning your investment back to you. And so I just want to make that clear. You've paid the price.
Yes, absolutely. That is a very, very, very valid point. Yes, that we all have contributed to everything that is being done with the vaccine, from its manufacturing to distribution to all of that as taxpayers. I'd like to pivot to Dr. Austin with a question about, what about those people that are consistently saying, I'm not worried about getting COVID-19. I'm not worried about it.
Well, there are a lot of individuals who live in denial. And, I even saw a patient, even up until the end, deny that he had COVID-19, and the individual passed away. And so denial, maybe for some people, it's a protection for them that, somehow keeps them feeling safe. But for those individuals who say there's no COVID-19, I wish I could take them for a tour when we have patients in our ICU laying flat on their stomachs on a ventilator. And you see the distress in the faces of the healthcare workers who are trying to take care of them, and the tiredness that you see from people working day in and day out trying to take care of these patients with the fear that they might be taking home this disease to their family. So I think people who deny COVID-19, I pray for them that they get clarity, because it is truly real. I have seen it. I have had, like I said, loved ones and coworkers who have passed away from it. And it is a real disease. And again, I don't know anyone who's passed away from getting the vaccine. However, I do know that there are individuals who have gotten sick from COVID-19. Please, please, I'm giving my plea, take the vaccine. It will help you combat if you get one of these strains. It's not just what's happening in the United States. We got all these strains. We got the South African strain, we got the UK strain, we got the Brazilian strain. And so it's what the vaccine does. It keeps you alive and allows you to be able to fight. And so let's go into, I know one of the questions was, what is the messenger RNA? The messenger RNA is, I look at the messenger RNA and the COVID-19 vaccine as Coach Popovich. It's getting you ready for the game, getting you ready to shoot that goal. So when that coronavirus enters your body's been trained and it's ready, right, and it knows what to do. So that's what the vaccine does. It prepares your body to be ready to fight. And I think if we're able to explain that to people, then they will be more likely to take the vaccine. And I think it's just makes it onerous on us as leaders to be able to explain that. So I told that to my little 13-year-old nephew. He was like, okay, Amy, I'm gonna take that. I understand that.
Yes.
So we have to be able to explain it to a child, but not only, we got to explain it to people in languages that they understand. Yes. Now, I don't know anybody that doesn't understand Popovich and Spurs and how he's the coach and getting them ready to win so we can win another championship. And so if we can explain it like that, I think people will be more likely to take the vaccine, and we will get more people to survive.
Thank you so much. I think, yes, putting it in those terms, I think we all can get it. And that's an example that maybe we all can share with others in those terms of using Coach Popovich and our beloved San Antonio Spurs as an example. Ms. Anaya, I'd like to ask you, what does being fully vaccinated mean to your business? What impact?
I think the key that it means is that my staff and myself, we're safe. We are safer, and it gives us an edge of being safer. It doesn't mean that we still do not need our, protective equipment. It just means that we have this opportunity to be safer, and it gives us an extra tool in our toolbox that we can go out and we can feel like we can exhale a little bit better versus where we were in June. We were still scared. And I'm not going to say the fear has completely gone away, because I think that would be very foolish. But as Dr. Austin said, it gives us an opportunity to fight another fight should that virus come up. And that is what, for us, it's going to keep us in business that way. It allows us to pivot and not have to worry about the health issue as much as we have. It's kind of like we have, 10 different balls in the air right now. Well, one of those balls is not bouncing as high right now. And it just gives our team members, again, that opportunity to breathe. But may I comment on another area also? What I've seen with COVID and coming together with our community is we're standing up. Just as we said, just because it's free doesn't always mean it's accessible. But look what, Francine, the group and team has done. It's made us come together in ways that we have not come together. So again, I'm going to look at those blessings of COVID-19. we've always known there's been inequities in healthcare for Black Americans, strong inequities among other things. But we've seen that in our education system. COVID has exposed all of that.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
what I see is, let's make sure as we get COVID under control, because that's what it is. It's not cure, it's under control. We make sure we go back and we plug in all those inequities that we're seeing in healthcare. And let's not make sure that we go, and I'm not going to say we were asleep on it. There are a lot of us out there that were screaming if these inequities were there, and people are like, oh, you really don't know what you're talking about. Well, this has shown up. So one of the takeaways, besides being vaccinated and protecting ourselves and continue to wear masks and doing what we need to do, let's make sure we address those issues. Why is there hypertension that's just perpetuated in our community? The diet, all of the elements that have brought us to this inequities there from housing.
Absolutely.
And I realize that we can't cure all that,
at one time.
But if we take it one bite at a time, as aggressive as we had with getting everyone vaccinated, so the next round, Tommy, as you said, there's going to be a third round. We already know that. But how do we get prepared and we lessen the impact? And we can lessen that impact each and every time, we won't be 2/3 of those that are dying on the front end of this.
Right. And so that brings me to a question for Ms. Factory. Do you feel that there's been adequate or enough information that has been given to the millennials who actually want the vaccine?
I think starting at even the crux of generation, right, in this question is understanding stigma, right? When we talk about a virus like COVID-19, we also have to address the stigmas that are associated with viruses in the history of the United States. That goes with HIV, that goes with AIDS, right? We're looking at how stigmas have have made communities more vulnerable to their access of antiviral medications that could prevent diseases or viruses, like HIV or AIDS. So back to COVID-19, right? It's become political. We've seen certain sides of the spectrum say, well, wear a mask. If you wear a mask, you are you're overly over the top safe. Whatever, this is a myth, right? We saw an administration from the beginning say that this is a hoax, all the way down to the president of the United States catching COVID-19, right? We see this in a span of months. That historically is insanely traumatic for the American people to see, and to have followed a structure of democracy in the history of the United States, and to see it kind of crumble when we talk about a pandemic, a global pandemic, how that affects our communities. It's important to pay attention to stigma, because stigma played a huge role in the outbreaks of COVID-19 that we saw. I like to think, had the administration been more proactive in this conversation, had there been an acknowledgement of the possibility of a global pandemic, I think we could have gotten a lot more ahead of the curve than we are now. Is that not to say that there are aspects of COVID-19 that have made the Black community more aware of conversations that need to happen between us about our health? Absolutely. But when we talk about things like our diet as a Black community, when we talk about things like diseases that run in our family as a Black community, we have to give credence to where that came from. A lot of the effects that Black communities face, like sickle cell, right, like high cholesterol, come from the transatlantic slave trade, right? Aspects of colonialism that we have to undo, we have to heal. And what healing means is an understanding that Black communities can be informed about vaccinations, that we can be informed about viruses that affect our bodies. So when I say the HIV and AIDS epidemic compared to now, that gap is technology. That gap is the innovation of information at our fingertips, right? And when you have that, hearing something through the grapevine can easily be translated into data that our communities reflect, right? It's not necessarily Black Freedom Factory's intention to 100% wholly trust the data, but it's how to inform the community on how to include their individual experience into that data and how that affects our communities. So in conclusion to your question, I'll get off my soapbox. I certainly believe that stigma is where we need to start. And stigma is that we are less informed, that we are less prepared. And that is so far from the truth. We are 100% able to exist in our future, vaccinated, healthy, and whatever may be it.
Okay, thank you. You're on mute. You're on mute.
I'm sorry about that. Hello. Thank you so much for these amazing answers. To our viewers, we're so grateful for your time tonight. We see that you're in our comment section, really having a good time. University Health is there answering some very important questions that you're asking. And, you know, we talked her into existence, Dr. Austin, but Naomi, something to say, is in the comments right now. She made my earrings and she is asking some very vital questions. So thank you so much, Miss Naomi, for joining in and having this conversation so that we can really have this back and forth and talking about how we're going to protect our village. Thank you so much to all the panelists. Let's talk about this giveaway for just a quick second before I ask any questions. We have a $250 Amazon Prime gift card that we need to give away. So how are we going to give it away? Let's ask one question apiece. Go ahead down and go into those comments right now. You have 3 minutes and your question is, do you have a primary care physician here in San Antonio? Do you know how they stand on the COVID-19 vaccine? Have you been in contact with your healthcare professional? If you have answered yes to any of those questions, go ahead, drop those 3 yeses in our comments, and we're going to select from those, and we're going to give you a $250 Amazon Prime, not Amazon Prime, but Amazon gift card. So I'm super excited to give that away in our comment section in just a moment. University Health is still down in those comments. They're answering great questions. Dr. Tommy Austin is giving us some great answers. Camilla is revealing so much. Thank you so much, Commissioner Calvert. You are giving us those responses that we need about the logistics of the vaccination. And Margaret, your heartfelt responses about how entrepreneurs and how businesses are affected by the vaccination and by great information, as well as sharing information, being responsible to share this information with our individual networks. We really appreciate your insight. For a moment, I actually have one question. How many people, and this might be something that we have to really watch going forward, but how many people do we know in San Antonio that have gotten the vaccine? I know Francine has done her best to get the whole village together. She's got that list of 6,000 people that she's assisted to get the COVID-19 vaccine, but are our numbers looking promising? Are our numbers looking good? Who can answer that one?
I can Google it. But I know that at least 25% of the adults here in town have gotten the vaccine, which I think is phenomenal. But however, we need to get to 70%.
Yes.
And so this is why this panel is so important. Go back and talk to somebody. Francine, we need to get you bring us another 6,000 people.
Francine needs some interns over there. We need to get her like a call center. Okay.
But
it depends on if you ask the question about 1 dose or 2.
Yes, it does. It does. But for both doses, at least 25% of the people have been vaccinated.
And but we're getting to 70%. And does that give us what we are being called community immunity? Will that get us to a space where we're seeing a little additional safety?
Well, what they call it is community or herd immunity. And what it does, it protects the weakest of us in the community. And so, for example, there are some people, because of their disease state, that they cannot take the vaccine. Say, for instance, you might be a cancer patient on chemo and other immunosuppressants where you might not can take the vaccine. Well, the purpose of having herd immunity is to be able to protect that person from getting the disease. And so that's why it's so important that we not only look at it from a personal standpoint, where's our civic duty? Come on, Commissioner Calvert, tell them it's our civic duty to do it.
Absolutely. Well, you just did. You did great.
It's that Tommy thing.
Yes.
And just to clarify, I'm sorry, I mean, who am I interrupting?
I was just gonna say, when we do discuss our civic duty and who has access to the COVID-19 vaccine, I hope that we can transition into conversation about our houseless community, because San Antonio is in fact in a public housing crisis, which in fact equals a public health crisis, right? Because then you have the mass spread of COVID-19 and people who don't have access to that necessarily. So I hope that we can eventually transition. I understand that there's areas opening up that are offering free vaccinations. That's wonderful. But we have to make sure that our outreach levels up. And I hope that that can include our communities that are also vulnerable to other aspects of the system, right? Which includes housing.
Yeah, totally agree with that, because Precinct 4 gave, at least on the county side, the most housing assistance was taken from Precinct 4. So that just really shows the demand and the need, and the fact that Black people and brown people, who are significant percentages of the Precinct 4 population, were hit hardest economically as well. And why I'm in Austin testifying on housing, why I gave $4 million to Catholic Worker House for the Dietrich Road tiny home facility, why I am pushing for $50 million from the American Recovery Program Act for housing. And also, along with the housing is the mental health stress and the trauma that people have gone through, both from loss of jobs, from educational and just social interaction and isolation. And there's been so much mental health trauma. So I really appreciate that, that Ms. Factory brought that up.
Yes. Other questions from the chat?
Yes, I have. The last question we have here is, how can we best strategize grassroots education plus access and among Black and people of color communities for the vaccinations? So we right now, and I'm going to go ahead and move right into the answer to this one, because I got a little bit of insight for you, because I actually took a tour of the new St. Philip's vaccine site, and it was absolutely beautiful. I believe that there's a lot of different things opening up so that we can make sure that our communities have access to the vaccinations. One of them is that East Side Clinic, that St. Philip's Clinic that sits right in the heart of the East Side. Another are walk-up appointments. So at 3 o'clock at Wonderland Mall, which is right off of 410 and 10 interchange. And then at 3 o'clock at St. Philip's, you have the opportunity to walk up. So if you get off of work at 4 and you want to go get your vaccinations, you can actually go there without having to have an appointment. And that's very important. Our people have full-time jobs. We are full-time students, full-time parents, and it gets away from us the opportunities to sit and click and refresh our screens. And so having these accessible dates and times available within our community makes that vaccination very, very
let me empower the community with in addition to that answer. I don't want us to miss the forest for the trees on this question, because the most important thing right now is expanding Monday through Sunday and after 5 p.m. access for our working people. This is a deficit that we have. So the most powerful thing that the Black community can do right now is to join with me when I call for the Northeast side, in the 78 corridor, and the Paramvital corridor, for those areas to also have daily vaccination sites, as well as the Southeast side, because the South and the West side were hit the hardest with the virus, but there still remains sporadic and intermittent, but we need to demand that of Metro Health, University Health System in the county. And we need to advocate that the nursing schools, the military, because we are the center of military medicine, help us with those extra shifts after 5, weekend shifts. All of those things have not been done. So while we've done some good things, there's a lot we haven't done. And that we need to do so that working people have access and don't have to take off from work in order to meet our hours.
And Commissioner Calvert, and I'll jump in because Dr. Austin, I know at university, there is availability at Wonderland until 8 p.m. at night.
8 p.m.
So there is, you know, for those folks that get off at 5, you've got 3 hours, you know, to be able to get there and get your vaccination. So and that access is available.
The only problem is I know are via bus routes, and there are some bus routes that happen where it will take you. Because
I want to jump.
You know, yeah. Go.
Okay, I just got a text from University Health. They're saying that at St. Philip's, you can go all day from 8 to 4 without an appointment. That's breaking news. I'm gonna just go ahead and say that. That's breaking news for the live feed right now. 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock. So all day you can drop your babies off at school, go get your vaccination. You'll have hours between 8 and 4 to go ahead. And when you get that first shot, you automatically get enrolled to get your next shot. So you don't have to, you know, go and walk up and get the second shot. You're in the system. You got the little card. It gives you the call to remind you and all of those things. So thank you so much for to University Health. They are tuned in and they're watching live and they're making sure they send me updates right to my phone. So 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. every single day at the St. Philip's vaccine site. You can walk up without an appointment. Thank you so much, University Health.
Well, I will say this real quick. Christian, on Thursday, if you go to my commissioner Facebook page, we are going to post, for those of you who work in the food and beverage industry, which is a very high contact industry, there are vaccines that are going to be there. The Pfizer vaccine will be there until 9 p.m., I believe from 10 a.m. until 9 p.m. And that's to help accommodate the schedules of folks who work in the food and beverage industry. So hope those of you who work there, I used to be a banquet waiter at the Marriott River Center Hotel. So I know what that life's like. So go down there and on Austin Street with the, it's the charity, it'll come to me. I'll get you the name.
Charity bar.
No, not charity bar. It's a nonprofit that helps food and beverage workers. It'll come to me.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
So I think it goes without saying that we have certainly shared about access and availability and what that looks like in our community here in San Antonio, whether it is the time of day, whether it is about needing to have an appointment, or whether it is about the educational piece that we have put forth tonight, just in having this conversation. Kristen, were you gonna say something? Did you?
No, I have nothing. I'm watching the comments. Again, we got University Health in the comments. And actually, Carla just came in and said something really, asked a really pointed question. For folks that don't have IDs, how are they able to get the vaccination? Who can give us an answer to that?
So I think Dr. Austin should answer that, but also I can tell you that there's an organization called Reflection Ministries. I've given $25,000 to them in the past to help people get their IDs. Aisha and Ramon and Chapo will help you get your ID. I'm glad you brought that up because I want University Health System to continue to fund their organization because there are a lot of people who have IDs and they're the working class and those who've been incarcerated or fallen on tough times where they couldn't afford their tickets and their license got suspended, all that kind of stuff. We need to have an effort at the county University Health System to help with ID recovery. And so this is something that we need to be doing. And I'm so happy that they brought that up. But Reflection Ministries is a group that can help you get an ID. That's going to help you not just with the vaccine, but with a lot of stuff that you need. So seek them out.
Great.
Awesome. That's really good news. And I'm going to have Reflection Ministries, their link, as soon as we find it, we're going to drop it in the comments for our viewers so they can make sure that they can pass that information right on to their followers, fans, and friends. I'm going to send it back over to you, Francine.
Okay. Well, as we're preparing to close out, I think one of the questions that I want to ask and that each of you just pop in and share your thoughts about that, and that is, what does protect your village mean to you? What does that mean? We're talking about coming together to protect our village for all of those, those that are our family and those that are our extended village. How important is that as we are really trying to, as Commissioner Calvert said, we're headed towards healing. That's what we're doing. We're headed towards healing. So what does that mean, protect your village? Dr. Austin, I'll let you go first.
So for me, that means that everybody that I'm connected to, my responsibility is to make sure that they understand the significance and they understand the side effects and rewards, benefits, everything in regards to getting the vaccine. And there, I did it. Had a sore arm. I was a little tired for a few days. And I told the relatives that I was like, well, take a Tylenol or whatever and lay down and relax. You'll be all right.
Keep it moving.
Keep it moving. Keep it moving. But the thing is, the protecting your village means that one day I'm going to get to see my people. So that's what it's all about to me. I want to have another family reunion, and I can't have that if people don't take this darn vaccine. So that's how I explained it to them. Y'all like to eat barbecue and all that good stuff and get together. We got to do that. But in order to do that, you got to take the vaccine.
Absolutely. Okay. Miss Analia?
Dr. Austin, the same thing. I'm like, do you guys want to come over? I have 25 or 30 people over for holiday meals. We've only had just our family, 6 of us. So if you guys want to come over and get that mac and cheese like you do and everything else. And it just goes back to protect, educate, share, be honest and upfront. And Dr. Austin, as you said, my arm was sore and I was tired. And I flipped the script and said, Lord, thank you for giving me a couple of extra days to make myself sit down and rest. Mm-hmm. So I took it as a benefit. So educate, be honest, answer those questions, and also keep talking to people. It's kind of like I'm talking to my teenage kids. I got to tell you something 100 times. Well, guess what? I'll share the story 500 times if I need to and tell our family. And that's what it means about a village. We are only as strong as the weakest link in our village. We are all responsible for our brothers and sisters, and we have to remember that. And one other thing, understand that everybody can communicate differently, and we have different age groups here and different backgrounds. Let us communicate in the love language that will get someone there to take that vaccine.
Thank you. Ms. Factory?
Protecting your village. I think when I reflect on that, especially in the past few weeks of my life, it would be believing your village, right? Validating your village. One of my favorite quotes from Black feminist philosophy is, bring me flowers when I'm alive, not when I'm dead, right? And that's making sure that we value the people in our lives while they're in our lives, and making sure that protecting that extends into the future. So conversations like this, and making sure that we believe and validate each other's experience, because that's the only truth that we can find, especially with the vulnerabilities that the Black community has faced in the history of the United States with healthcare. So that's what that means to me. Believing in our village, respecting our village, and seeing us in the future. That's the only way we can live on.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Calvert?
Well, for me, it means honoring my oath. And that's not the oath I swore to the state of Texas and the US Constitution, but it's an oath that I swore to God when I was elected. I swore an oath to God to protect his children. And I told God, if I ever stop, you take me out of political office. So protecting the village is about empowering you with the information when government is messing up. And it has messed up with respect to the response, and it's still messing up. So for example, we just put out that the Alamo Dome is the place that seniors 70 and up can go and get their vaccines. Well, the Alamo Dome is a long way to walk, a lot of steps for 70 plus years old. with a parking lot and a huge complex, that is not the best place for us to get seniors to get their vaccinations, because all those steps. So I'm going to tell you, and I hope you will remind those in charge of the emergency powers, if you happen to be, you don't need to be 70 plus to see that that's going to be a difficulty. And it means what I did to carve out the first $2 million for testing. It means that testing went for our schools. I'm very proud of the fact, don't get much credit for it, but I'm very proud of the fact that I carved out the first $2 million so that school children and teachers could be tested. And it means making sure that there are vaccine centers in every part, particularly where people don't have the gas money, the bus money, the access, the cars to get to a vaccine center, and remembering the least among us. I think it means really fighting for equality in the LIFT fund, the grants that we've given for small businesses when it wasn't equal, and calling it out. Again, another area where government leadership messed up. You know, we are in an Ecclesiastes moment. We are in a moment where we have to understand that we battle not just with flesh and blood, but with spiritual wickedness in high places, principalities. And this is bringing us all to a new level of consciousness about, you know, our connectivity, our vulnerability, because we're all vulnerable now. Whether it was the storm or February, or whether it was the disaster of COVID over the last year, we all recognize that no matter your income, no matter your race, that we're all vulnerable, and we got to look out for each other. So that's my commitment in terms of protecting the village, is to empower you with a heightened sense of where we're at.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you to each of you for what you have contributed this evening to make this a very, very powerful conversation for our community. And by doing that, you have helped the village. And we are a brother's keeper. We absolutely are, in every way, our brother's keeper, our sister's keepers. We are that and more. And these conversations and this type of opportunity allows us to know that in a bigger way. As part of like our community outreach for COVID vaccine, the sisters that came together in doing that were thinking about that we are our brother's keepers, and that when other people say it can't be done, or it won't work or whatever, that we step up and we step in and we make it happen, and not complain about what's involved for that to happen. Just make it happen. So thank you to each of you this evening for helping us to make it happen, to sharing your passion and your power and your position to be able to give insight to what we can do to come together to protect our village. You're on mute, Christian. You're on mute.
I'm sorry. That was so powerful. Thank you so much, Francine, for that. I don't even want to go into all of this. Thank you, Francine. That was everything. That was the message. I'm going to make that into a YouTube post on just GP alone. Thank you so much. And then our winner today, Mrs. Naomi, something to say? You go and check your inbox, DM me so that I can send you your link to your $250 Amazon gift card. I am so grateful for all of you for joining. Everyone that is still watching, please share this with your fans, friends, and followers. Our community, our futures depends on it. Thanks to all of the panelists, again to University Health. We appreciate you for keeping our community informed, and y'all have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. Thank you, everyone.
That was fun.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.